Hey buddy, how you doing? Oh really? Yeah, I gotta admit, I didn't think anybody was gonna care about that one, but I'm certainly not gonna complain. Speaking of not caring, how are we doing on our new case? Go ahead, pull him up. No. Come on, nobody cares about this one anymore. No, come on, really? We got nothing. What's going on? You know what? I got one. Come on. I'm sure they got the shit done by now, right? It doesn't matter how many times I see it. Gotta love looking at it. Alright, come on, let's go. Well, that's how we doing back there, buddy. It says you can't go home again. Alright, run a quick check. One was up in 2. How you doing, baby? Alright, jump to hyperspace in 3, 2, 1. Yeah, I've been here quite a few times, actually. Back before I knew you. It's, kinda odd. Used to be a really beautiful place. Really nice. Not a lot of people go there anymore. It's turned into a bit of a wreck, honestly. But, you know, I guess some people still hold that hope that they can build something out of it. Yeah, you'll see when we get there. Yep. That would be it. I don't know, I guess sometimes I still hold out hope that there's something that could come out of all this, but looking at it now, I guess it just seems sad. I don't know. Maybe there's still hope.
Hello there, ladies and gentlemen. What, oh what is one to do when you reach a state of stagnation in your work? Once you've found a character who reaches some form of success, you tell their story. And yet people want more, for enough is never enough. And the end is never the end. Oh sure, the creatives in the world write new characters and new stories. In fact, they have to. Otherwise, their brains would explode. You also want to create something new, but it's risky to take too far a step out your own door. You want to do something new, but still have a lovely, marketable character front and center. You want to do something you could never do because of your own canonicity. Luckily for you, there exists this one little corner of the universe where things can be fucky all you like without worry. You can make those characters do the most unlikely things. Stick them in the most unlikely of circumstances. Place them in the most unlikely of matchups. You can place friends alongside enemies, the good amongst the bad, and if it ends up messing with your own canon or being wildly unpopular, there's no need to worry about any of that in the least, because you, my friend, are starting your very own multiverse. The multiverse is not a new concept by any means. Marvel and DC are perhaps the two most well-known proprietors of the multiverse in pop culture. There are a few different ideas for multiple universes, and if used carefully and sparingly, they need not be a huge problem. However, most people nowadays do not use them carefully, and now it is increasingly popular to use the many worlds form of a multiverse in fiction. This is stupid. This is so incredibly the dumb. To grossly oversimplify, the many worlds theory eventually stemmed out of what I've always personally found to be a dumb thought experiment. Schrodinger's cat. It was proposed that if someone were to put a cat in a box and leave it there for a few days and come back, they have no way of knowing whether that cat is alive or dead in the box. It would go on to propose that the cat is therefore both alive and dead, as it could be neither until acted upon by an outside universe. Therefore, until the box is opened, the cat is both possibilities. The many worlds theory states that once the box is opened, at least two, and I will get to that in just a moment, universes are simultaneously created, one where the cat is alive and one where it is not. Animal cruelty aside, I've always found this to be a dumb thought experiment personally, because obviously your knowledge of events has no preceding on the events themselves. My lack of understanding on how a nuclear power plant works does not stop it from functioning. Sadly, my refusal to consume every single one of the Disney products to come out lately do not wipe them from existence. The cat is alive or the cat is dead, and its being in the box does not change that. But the many worlds theory would go on to state that for every, and every is an impossibly important word here, for every possible choice that could go on to be made in any scenario ever, a new universe is created for that outcome. And all is as real as the next. And we perceive things to happen in a linear order, as that is the branch our current universe has taken. So, to jump back to the unfortunate cat, there are not two universes created by this scenario, but in several millions created once the box is opened. There's a universe where the cat died instantaneously of loneliness and betrayal, one where it was starved, one where it ate itself to death, one where it killed itself to escape from the box, one where it ate the box in order to escape but died of negative digestion issues, and many, 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 many more I cannot, and frankly do not want to devote the brainpower to. All of those ends for this unfortunate cat are just amongst the universes that caused the cat's direct death. The many worlds theory is often used in fiction like thus. In Universe A, you had Reese's Puffs for breakfast. In Universe B, you had toast and eggs. In Universe C, you had Pop-Tarts. And in Universe D, you skipped breakfast. This is very broad and not how the many world universe actually works. Take option C, where you choose to consume Pop-Tarts. Not only that choice, but every single additional choice spawns a new universe. What flavor of Pop-Tart?
Have you ever had generic Pop-Tarts?
No, I have not.
They're so cheap they can't even call them Pop-Tarts. You know what they call them?
I don't want to know.
Yeah, you do.
No, I don't.
Yeah, you do.
No.
You do.
No.
Yeah.
You just want to ad-lib something and I don't want to hear it.
Yeah, you do.
What do they call them? They're so cheap they don't call them Pop-Tarts.
Poop toots.
All right, thanks.
What package? How many? How long do you cook them? What glass do you choose for your milk? Or do you not use milk at all because you're a barbarian? How much milk do you pour? Are you using a paper towel, a napkin, your sleeve? What part of the pastry do you bite into first, second, third? Which did you do first? Did you bite into the whole thing or break it into pieces? Did you dunk it or drink milk afterwards? How deep did you dunk? Did you get your fingers wet? For every single one of those questions, every possible answer to those questions spawns a new universe. All of these and infinitely more universes spawning out of exactly how you consumed a pastry in the morning, all virtually indistinguishable from one another. And this is very important in regards to all this foolishness because, as often touted by things like The Loki Show and Season 2 of Invincible, the end result is that every possible set of circumstances exist. You can dial that in however insanely precise you would like. And by this theory, there is a universe where that exact set of circumstances in fact exists. While I may not personally be the huge fan of it, Rick and Morty understands this and even utilizes it. In Rick Potion number 9, Morty all but destroys his universe due to a mishandled love potion, and Rick's eventual solution to this is to travel to another universe exactly like their own. Only their Rick and Morty have just died due to a freak accident in the garage. They hide those bodies and assume their place in that universe. Setting aside the question of exactly how many more universes that decision must make, the point is that this universe is not only likely to exist, it absolutely exists by the rules of that many worlds theory. Now, in the comics, we've had up to, although I admit my knowledge on the comics is somewhat spotty, so as far as I'm aware, we've had up to 999 universes in the Marvel Universe, as that number was the designation given to the MCU up until the MCU stole 616 from the comics because the MCU is determined to fuck up so many things and it only had so much shit to shovel.
838, Stephen, is that some kind of cyborg me?
Our universe is 838, and we've designated yours 616.
And therefore, it decided to wipe the comic continuity out of existence, no matter how much people pretend that this isn't what it did. On a slightly unrelated note, this also means that Mysterio plucked a random naming system and number out of the thin fucking air and was exactly right.
This is Earth, Dimension 616. I'm from Earth 833.
As another goofy little side note, did you know that our Earth canonically is a universe within the Marvel Universe? We are designated as Earth 1218, I believe, unless I'm misremembering. That creates some really weird self-creation loops, and that's a bit of writing fuckery we're not going to get into right now. But in the comics line, the universes follow a branching hierarchy overseen by Merlin, and the branching universes were the results of major decisions made by characters in the Marvel Universe. So, in comparison to the breakfast example from earlier, by the comics continuity, none of that creates more than one universe. You going to the right or the left around a puddle doesn't affect anything, unless you going left leads to you getting knocked into a generator and becoming Electric Man or some such shittery. Point being, Marvel Comics, for all their insanity, and there is a fuck ton of it, realized that the multiverse was insane and problematic, and tried to curb it at least a little. DC realized their multiverse was messy as all get out and rebooted it with New 52, despite that going on to become famously unpopular. But let's look at perhaps the biggest futz with the multiverse in the MCU movies. I'm specifying movies here because I'm sure Loki does make it worse, but I have not watched Loki, and I don't intend to. Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Badness. Now, if you are looking for a full breakdown on this film, I would highly recommend Muller's video on it, as it is brilliant. However, the main clinch of the film is that Wanda wants to kill America Chavez, who has the ability to travel the multiverse at will, steal her powers, go to another universe, kill that universe's Wanda, and take her place so that she can be with the kids that she made up. Now, that movie almost recognizes the issue with the multiverse and asks why Wanda couldn't just be teleported to another universe without killing America. Her excuse is that, well, what if her kids get sick and they can only be cured in another dimension? Likewise, America is the only America in the multiverse because of some stupid dreaming thing the movie was married to and refused to divorce. Now, these are impossibly dumb when placed under the many worlds multiverse. Wanda could not only go to a universe with her kids, she could go to a universe with her kids where that Wanda has just died. She could go to a universe that has her kids where that Wanda has just died and the kids would happily accept a new Wanda as their mother without question. She could go to a universe with her kids where that Wanda has just died where the kids would accept a new Wanda without question and Vision never died. She could go to a universe where her kids where that Wanda just died and her kids would happily accept a new Wanda as their mother and Vision never died and her brother is still alive as well. Remember him? No? What if they get sick? She could go to a universe with her kids, with a Wanda that has just died, that the kids would happily accept as their new mother without question, where Vision never died, where her brother is still alive and well, and no one ever gets sick because they have cured all illnesses, and no one ever dies because they've appeased the gods, here read as script writers. That's my point here. The multiverse is dumb because every possibility exists, and there are a nearly infinite number of perfect solutions to any issues when you allow all situations. On the other hand, America says that there's only one of her, which is literally impossible because every single time she takes a step, she should be making a new universe. Even if we were going with the Marvel's comics line of continuity and universes, these characters make major decisions several times throughout the film, and should be spawning new universes every time they do that. There should be several dozens, nay, several hundreds, nay, at least hundreds of thousands of America Chavezes by the end of the film in accordance with the law of the MCU. But let's delve into the realm where this really breaks down. In that film, Doctor Strange finds an evil Strange who wants to kill all the other Doctor Stranges because he's an incel. I'm not kidding. He starts killing the Stranges in other existences, except that given the dozens of choices that must be made in literally any given fight, there should be thousands upon thousands of universes with different outcomes of every single fight. There's an almost infinite number of universes for every single fight where the evil Strange wins, and an almost equal infinite number of universes where the other Strange wins. This literally spans out infinitely until it all collapses in on itself because it has nowhere else to go. Literally, this hurts my brain to think about. Because now people travel between these universes freely. There's a universe out there where someone has killed the multiverse, and another universe in the multiverse where they were thwarted, both existing at the same time. Do you see how dumb this is? Kang makes no sense, even if he wasn't getting his ass kicked every single time we see him, and Jonathan Major wasn't in hot water at the moment. The Council of Kangs is suggesting that they all get together, but there's also an equal number of universes out there where a Kang decides to destroy the Council of Multiverse and succeeds and fails. This is a thought exercise that physically hurts the brain. It's like trying to actually understand and grasp infinity. There are just some things for which the human mind is not equipped to handle, and the idea of something sprawling out infinitely is on that list. You can know what infinity means, but that does not mean you actually grasp it mentally. But to actually understand the idea of the multiverse, or the idea of infinity, you would need magic. And speaking of magic, when we come to the realms of people like Iron Man and Captain America, it doesn't seem so far-fetched to include something as seemingly innocent as magic to combat them in the MCU. Magic has a somewhat loose definition, but the MCU has perhaps the loosest I am aware of in pop culture, although Harry Potter is perhaps a close second. When it comes to magic systems, there are what is commonly referred to as a hard and a soft system. The more clear the limitations and rules placed on the system of magic, the more sense we can make out of it, and the more we can clearly say what does and does not make sense. The softer the magic, and the more we just have to shrug and say, oh well, I guess it can do that now, or I guess it can't do that anymore. The Force is actually a great example to use as an examination of this. In the OT, it's not a hard system certainly, but it is simple and requires training. Force push, force pull, mind tricks, force jump, heightened reflexes, sometimes visions, guided movements, and the ability to guide those you love from the afterlife if you're good, and force choke or force lightning if you're evilness. That's actually fairly concise, all things considered. It's a guidance system that allows telekinesis for a few outside abilities, and I would say it requires training, concentration, and focus. This need not be an extensive list by any means, but it gives one a general idea of what is possible with the Force. Then came the prequels, and things got a little bit messier. We add in Force Speed, the ability to reflect lightning, Windu's Shatterpoint, which is similar to the Force Crush, presumably some kind of guidance in throwing the lightsaber, Force Cloaking, I suppose, whatever it is Palpatine is doing to hide himself. Extremely enhanced energy and abilities. There's using Force Choke on another Jedi, because yes, Lucas did introduce that, and yes, it was dumb then too. Still, all of this, with the exception of choking Jedi, because that really is just dumb and it very much breaks the system. But all of the rest of this doesn't actually break the system too much. The general power is slightly ramped up, but not to a level of insanity. Not most of the time, at least. And it at least made some sense to ramp up the energies, as now we're dealing with fully trained Jedi. Then comes the bullshit powers of the sequels, and the general power of everything is ramped up quite a lot. The rules that had been previously applied were wiped out and negated, despite being fairly soft in their own right. Harry Potter, as I mentioned, is also quite soft with his magic. You need a wand, usually, though not always. There's accidental magic that just goes away by the time you're an adult, usually. There's vague rituals and potions which don't require wands or incantations at all. Other times you need to have exactly the right wand movements and frequent practice, though it's never explained exactly what this practice does or how it makes one more proficient. Harry masters the Patronus charm because he'd already done it. Just, their magic is full of the idea of, oh, I guess that's how that works then, because there is nothing to tell you how it works. Yet for all its horrible soft magic, the MCU is far worse. It declares there's a difference between witchcraft and sorcery, but never explains this. They can both pull from the same list of spells, given that they can both apparently use the Darkhold and I suppose the Book of Ashanti. Doctor Strange's powers seem to be invented on the fly. Wanda's abilities and powers are whatever they're said to be in any given scene, regardless of what was previously established. For comparison, my favorite magic system in fiction would belong to the first, arguably two first books of the Inheritance cycle. You can actually do a huge list of things with their magic, but you must have the energy and know the words in the ancient language to get across your intent. Or at the very least, you must know the name of the basic object to imbue your will into it. For example, Aragon is able to blow up a bunch of enemies on a bridge. I'm sorry for using the movie clips, by the way. I don't have anything else to use for visuals. This is what we have. Oh, I should do a commentary on this movie. Let me know if you'd like to see that below. But in the books, he blows up a bunch of Urgles by setting his bow on fire and causing an explosion through the use of the magical word for fire. He also has a naturally stronger connection to magic due to his being a dragon rider, as dragons are inherently magical, and when they form a bond, it affects the person they bond with. Yet, this action nearly kills him because, as the book Brahm tells him, using magic takes just as much energy as if you use your arms and back, and too much energy imbued into a spell will outright kill you. It should only be used to accomplish things you cannot do the mundane way. So, why not just blast anyone and everyone apart with a spell the second you see them? Fight should be over as soon as you see the other person. The book actually addresses this. Because, in the second before somebody would die to another caster, they can easily cast an opposing spell on you and kill you. Likewise, it's also possible to place wards around yourself to defend against certain attacks. In this world, you're limited more by your creativity than by anything else. Therefore, when two magic users meet, it is most often attempted to invade the other person's mind first to read their thoughts and intention, as you can't really invent an attack strategy without thinking of what it is you're about to do. It's very hard to win if you lose this mental battle, because the other person can counter what you're about to do before you even manage to do it. This creates a very tense moment in a fight where two magic users might be fighting one another physically and mentally at the same time. While I say you usually lose a magic battle if you lose the mind battle, a sword through the throat is also a pretty effective counter to having your mind broken into. They even go into detail on how to block someone from your mind. You must concentrate on one thing so hard that the enemy trying to read your mind can see nothing else. Likewise, there are a few different sources for magic in that world. Riders gain power from their dragons, elves from the pact they made eons ago with the dragons after a war, and that functions in much the same way. Sorcerers summon spirits to do their bidding and therefore don't risk killing themselves, but if they summon spirits that are too strong for them, they take control of the sorcerer's body and turn them into a monstrous shade. Then there's the magic that witches use, primarily in the forms of potion and fortune reading. The elves also display the ability to sing and shape things into their desired form. There is also necromancy, which is not possible through the ancient language, and is a fouler type of magic not deeply gone into. The way power is increased in this universe is by linking your mind and power to another. As Aragon is so linked with Saphira, this gives him an incredible amount of energy to use in magic. Later on, there's also other sources, but that's when things start to get fucky, and I'll get to that in a moment. Point being, all these limitations and rules were actually engaging in the story, and it allows the reader to understand the difficulty in what Aragon is trying to do. If he's attempting to lift a pebble, okay, not a big deal. When he's trying to knock back a bunch of very heavy muscular enemies off their feet to try to help somebody, he almost kills himself because he's being stupid. That's not just me insulting the character. Aragon in the books is actually not especially bright, and with his use of magic in particular, he often does very stupid things. He gets yelled at a lot for it. He has a few select moments of decent thought, but he's not really very bright. This all leads to fascinating things and theories. And if one wanted to add to this system by use of their own spells or invention, it would have to flow in with these rules, much as it might if it were an RPG system. Rules are good. They establish a world and a system that allows us to engage with what the fuck is happening. This got somewhat hairier when Pellini added the ability to store energy in gems and draw it from surrounding plant life, but that was still manageable. It got very hairy when he added the idea of dragon hearts being able to carry the energy that the dragon carried and add to a person's strength much like a living dragon could. But I suppose that's all future issues. While I'm not far into the more recent novel of Murtagh, it has also introduced the ability to negate magic used on somebody if they're wearing an amulet, even negating the magical word of power, which is supposed to be the god mode of the ancient language, allowing the speaker to do anything, and hence, I display the magic system in his world has gone and gotten fucky. In the earlier novels, things were extremely easy to grasp, but they were very straightforward. They were also highly engaging, even with simple feats and features. Aragon learning how to lift a pebble or his attempts to find water in the desert were far more engaging to me than the struggle for the singular word and controlling everything that always works except for when you have this specific type of magic and so on and so forth. This is a problem I will be speaking on in a little bit. But, as I mentioned earlier, MCU magic has always sort of just been that it is whatever it is in any given scene, and therefore is literally only subject to the whims of fate in that scene. Again, here read as scriptwriters. But my earlier example of the word of power in the inheritance cycle demonstrates another MCU problem, and it is one I alluded to earlier. The MCU, and Disney Star Wars alike, have fallen under the delusion that bigger is always better. After all, if one Death Star was threatening and scary, what about a huge Death Star that can blow up a whole system and eat the sun? What about a fleet of Death Star destroyers? Yeah, baby. Force lightning? Nah. Force lightning that's so powerful it can blow up an entire fleet worth of ships? Make it bigger. People love it. Dark Troopers went down great, so thousands of Dark Trooper and Beskar alloy armor will go down wonderful, and now Gideon can clone the Force into his clones. Yeah, honey, let's do it. This is something the MCU fell victim to very quickly, and as Star Wars so often does, it learned the wrong lesson. The MCU Avengers movies were so effective because it had the team-up of several characters, most of whom being introduced in their own much smaller stakes, which allowed us to get attached to them. Captain America was fighting Nazis, sure, but we saw who he was as a person on a very small scale before he got turned into a popsicle. We even see quite a bit of who he is after that. There's several small moments that let us in on his character, his struggle to learn all the time he lost. Tony Stark is introduced with all his boisterous personality and swagger through his actions in the first Iron Man. Thor 1 shows Thor's journey on becoming a complete person, which they would sadly recycle over and over again, because apparently they have no idea what to actually do with him. But when they all teamed up and Loki threatened the Earth with the Tesseract, sure, it was threatening, because Earth was in danger, but we really weren't especially attached to the people that Loki threatened, beyond the fact that they were humans on Earth, and hey, I'm a human on Earth, allegedly. So therefore, I have some interest in that because I could be like that person who is placed in danger. But the true investment in the film comes from the characters we loved and knew, facing this very serious threat that could destroy them. This is why Infinity War was so impactful, because we saw a ton of characters we'd gotten to know be wiped out. We liked these characters because they were made likable and introduced to us. Let's be honest, if Captain Marvel had been involved in the Thanos snap along with everything else, most people wouldn't have cared. Hell, knowing what would have come later, many might have cheered. But when people saw Peter, Groot, Bucky, T'Challa, and many others die, it reached us. Even if you knew on a higher level that Marvel was likely going to bring these characters back, because obviously they weren't going to let the cash cow die, it was impactful watching all these characters you cared about be destroyed. Many were distraught by Han Solo's death in TFA. By contrast, I don't know anybody who was touched by Kylo Ren's death that wasn't a Reylo fan. Hell, most reactors I've seen even tear up at Vader's death, because it was a moment where he came back as Luke's father, which was especially impactful to Luke, whom we've attached to. Vader's dying wish is to see his son without the guise of Vader, and instead be Anakin without the mask. That's engaging, it's endearing, it's touching and heartbreaking as a bittersweet goodbye to the character. I genuinely know no one who felt anything at the destruction of the 6 or however many planets it was in TFA. We don't know anyone there, and therefore it didn't mean anything to us. Threatening to lose Chewie and 3PO and Tross reached more people than that did, because we'd gotten to like those characters. Thanos threatening half of the galaxy was really as big as they were allowed to go, and it only worked because it was the accumulation of over 3 phases of projects and almost 11 years of time and investment with those characters. It's been 4 years since then, and they've not found any footing. It started with bringing Loki back. They needed a threat. Shit, now all the multiverses ever are at risk. But no one cares because we don't know those multiverses. We haven't spent time with anyone there. Oh no, now all these fictional people that you don't know, never seen, and will never know might die. I've had a more emotional parting with the last cigarette in the pack. We need to start somewhere before you start making things bigger. And then there's really a point of climax, and it's best just to acknowledge that you've hit the ceiling and let things go back to a slow boil for a moment and then start building again. Let's look at a bit of an analogy here. Character, life, and death is similar to building and destroying a house in a way. You get to know a house when you build it. You get to know all the nooks and crannies. You grow attached to it. You remember the frustration with that basement door that wouldn't fucking close right. You recall the effort that went into making sure that the setting sun would shine just through the kitchen window quite right for family dinners. Then the character death is taking a sledgehammer and smashing the shit out of that house. Because it means more to us. Because it's not just a house, it's your house. Marvel built and then smashed every so often. But now all they can do is threaten to smash with a bigger and bigger hammer, all the while ignoring they've not built so many houses in the recent years, and honestly not done very good maintenance on the ones that are still around. And what few new ones are being built smell funny, because they were built with cheap materials. Let me take you down a bit of an imagination street for a moment. Let's say you're a coffee drinker. You have recently purchased a single-serve coffee machine because you live alone, and you don't need a full pot all the time. That's just wasteful. And you don't want to be wasteful. So you begin the process of selecting a coffee machine that will work for you. You start trying out dozens upon dozens of the differing pods available, for there are so very many. And if we're not just widely brewing coffee, perhaps we can try to find a really delicious flavor. After several months of comparison, you find your favorite coffee type. You brew it daily, you come to love it. It's there for you in all of life's moments and struggles. You're going to work, trying to suffer through the dating scene, manage the stress of your childhood trauma. But at the very least, it's okay because you have your good coffee. Then one day you come to find that the coffee company who makes your preferred coffee is going out of business, and therefore you eventually run out of those pods. Even if you bought all that remain, eventually you will run out. This might flip one corner of your entire daily routine on its head. You might even be in a bad mood for several days because your morning resilience has gone and betrayed you by leaving you. This is what happens with characters. You come to know them, even to the extent that you can almost treat them as if they were real. This is why readers have been known to stress themselves out and actually be upset at the actions of characters in novels, because they fell in love with those characters. They wanted the best for and from them. They feel betrayed by the characters or by the author for what's happened. This is a piece of what's called a story, and it's required for the audience to feel something. That feeling is what people seek when they spend money on your product, Disney. This is why messaging is often met with disdain in movies, because it has no place in establishing the relationship with that world or its characters. Fiction is by its nature escapism, and preachiness cannot hold an escapism, for one will inevitably grow stronger than the other given time in the other's presence. Time is, after all, the nature of so many problems, which, masterful segue, brings us to the final problem of the MCU's world building as of late. Time travel. Time travel is a whole messy box of fuck. You have to be exceptionally careful if you choose to open it. Harry Potter actually has one of the only sensible forms of time travel that I'm aware of, where if you go back you don't actually change anything, rather you only cause what has happened to happen. There are a ton of problems there, don't get me wrong. If you need to time travel though, that is perhaps the only reasonable way. There is something that even Endgame, for all its fuckery, understood quite well, which was the need to keep a singular, consistent timeline, and then they fucked it. They fucked it like the drunk chick at a bar. Time travel isn't a casual type of thing. For example, let's look at Back to the Future, which makes no damn sense. Not only because Marty almost fucks his mom. What was with the 80s pop cultures and incest kisses, really? But Marty goes back in time, changes stuff up, and then pops back to the future where his family is entirely different. Even though they still live in the same house, but everything else about their lifestyle has changed. Marty has new clothes, a new truck, all resulting from this time change. But he has no memory of this, despite him obviously having to have existed in that universe. It's not as if there are two Martys now running around, or that he can somehow meld minds, or that he forgot that he time traveled. Somehow a man grew up in this world, perfectly normal, and he's had his body hijacked by another form of himself. This makes no sense. Why would another you take over your brain out of nowhere? Yet the MCU has begun to use time travel and is just as loose and ridiculous with it as everything else. I know the first episode of Loki Season 2, as well as the TVA, got very fucky with time travel, and I used my own superpower of remembering shit to put my money on the fact that it wasn't making a speck of sense and elected not to watch it. So, there we have my submission for the MCU's square of mess, their rhombus of nonsense, their rectangle of failure. Don't get me wrong, it's certainly not the only issues they have. Far, far from it. But I would submit these are perhaps the 4 biggest fuck-ups that are hardest to come back from. I would posit that these 4 issues have so fucked the MCU beyond recovery that now there is nowhere left for them to go. And so, perhaps it is for the best that all things pass, and all things eventually die.
I guess I just wanted to come here and think about what could have been, you know? What was gonna be, I guess. Ah, well. Alright. How about we head back home? Get an actual case going. Actually, as a matter of fact, I do have an idea. I think I'm visiting an old friend. Haven't seen him in a little while. You'd like him.